Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. Welcome to Open Source Friday. Here we have Peter Wilson from Mozilla AI joining us today to talk about our new project CQ. And so thank you all for joining us today. We're super excited. Peter, welcome. Welcome to the show. Excited to connect and chat more about Project CQ and Mozilla AI. Maybe a brief intro to tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your background into open source and your journey, just to kind of kick off the show.
Yeah, sure. Nice to meet you, Kevin. So I'm Peter Wilson. I'm a staff engineer at Mozilla AI. I've been here for a bit over a year and a half now. I'm based in the UK, and I've been doing software engineering for over 20 years now, which makes me feel very old. Yeah, so
Still young at heart, though. That's fine.
yeah, I joined Mozilla AI from HashiCorp, where I used to work on Vault. And before that, I was a principal engineer at NatWest, doing kind of like financial technology stuff, and gets a little bit more boring as you go further and further back from there. So kind of leave it at that. Yeah.
What made you kind of get into open source from early days, and how have you kind of stayed into it along the journey?
I think it's something I didn't do a lot of. I probably used a lot of, but wasn't a great contributor. I contributed like off and on now and then to different projects, like in tiny ways. I think, like, oh, I can do a docs PR. I feel like I helped, because I suffered a problem, which is good, right? Because but at the same time wasn't doing a lot. And then I think it was when I joined HashiCorp. They obviously had a big focus in their like principles and Tau around how they wanted to do work, and they had, before they changed the licensing and all the rest of it, they had like an open source model really around how they did some of their products, and I think that was really cool. And they did a lot of work in like the Go ecosystem with libraries that are still open source now. So sure. I guess like started getting more involved with that sort of thing. Yeah, and that was when it was like, oh, this is quite nice. Nice to be able to do a bit of both, right? Like, you want to contribute to open source projects. It doesn't mean that, everything in the world has to be open source. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm curious, like, do you remember what your first stream was that you kind of worked on?
First open source one.
Yeah, the first open source one, but also the first, maybe like the first contribution that you had, or the first like, project that you actually like worked on, not just that you consumed, but the first like commit that you had in an open source project. Do you remember it all? Putting you on the spot.
On the spot, no, but I would imagine it is literally like a little docs PR on something. I don't know. Is this something you've done your research and now?
No. I was just actually really curious. I'll dig it up while we're chatting. But I was just kind of curious if you've had some thoughts on that. But yeah, very curious.
Yeah, I'll think about it, but I'm not sure.
Cool. And then maybe like let's kind of start just shifting a little bit into the project. So maybe just tell us a little bit at a high level, like what is Project CQ? How did you find the problem space itself, and like what are you seeing that you were like, hey, we need to build something to make this work?
Sure. So the project, the CQ project, is the idea of it is, as well, we pitching it as sort of like a Stack Overflow for agents. This is
okay.
For my smooth brain, it makes it much easier to understand.
Yeah.
I guess the idea being that you sort of run into problems when you're using these coding agents quite a lot, and there's ways to try and teach them not to do things, but it's sort of like there's different levels to that, like the pyramid of testing and all the rest of it, the same vibe. You've got your rules in a repository or whatever, then you've got like your memories that are associated with that thing, and you've got your global rules, but then it's all kind of at that point linked to your machine or whatever, and normally linked to your specific coding agent. So it's getting better, I think, now, because there's a lot of fallback between. So if you use open code, for example, I think it honors Claude MD files if it can't find agents MD. Needless to say, you get all this stuff, and which is good, right? And it's useful, but start seeing like you end up with like huge files as you sort of like adding more and more, and you kind of expect the LLM to be able to just like have its attention on all this stuff. And doesn't always work. So I guess the idea with CQ was like, okay, how can we like fix this? How can we, I guess, make it so the agents can share the stuff that they're learning, so that they don't always have to have the problems, but B, kind of make it more on demand. So we've created this plug part of the project. It's quite, I guess it's quite a big mono repo now. Is that, I guess at its core, it's like a plugin that works with OpenCode or Claude or some of the IDEs as well that will install into like Cursor and Windsurf. And that plugin's got a skill which kind of tells it how to get on with its business, and it runs an MCP server underneath the hood to let it do calls to a local SQL like database to save stuff, or if you've got remote connected up with one of like the server, then it'll send it there. And yeah, so before it starts a task, it's told you should go and query CQ and see if it knows anything about this beforehand. And the idea is it kind of like, it's not really like for project specific stuff. It's more like general gotchas, you know, like, oh, this library that open source library everyone's using, this version,
Yeah.
this problem, or I checked the docs, it said this, but when I tried it, it didn't work, or I spent 10 turns doing something. So if I'd just known the last thing, I could have saved all those tokens. And the idea is it kind of proposes these things when it finds them. And yeah, there's an approval process on the remote if we've got that configured, and once everything's approved, then it is available for anyone else who's querying that as well. Kind of like the high level vibe. But yeah, we've built a lot of stuff in the last I think it's about 2 months now. So there's like a Go SDK and a Python SDK. There's the CLI that's written in Go, which also hosts the MCP server. There's the plugin and the skills and stuff. There's an open source server in there, so you can kind of host it locally or amongst a team or something. Yeah.
I love it. And how many people do you have working on the project right now since it's been started?
Well, there's a lot. Well, when you start up still, so we're kind of like juggling a lot of projects and a lot of people. I would say I've spent most of my time on it, and we've had about, let's say 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 or 4 other people kind of coming in and out, helping with different things when they've got a bit of time. So like massive shout out to everyone who shows up on the contributors. We've had a few open source contributions as well, which has been really cool. But yeah, and we're trying to build as well like a hosted version, which I think we're gonna. It is up, but we're probably better to do an official release on Monday, I think. So that'll
Official
allow
release,
people.
that's good.
Yeah, we'll do an official one on Monday because Friday's maybe not the best day to do this sort of thing. But yeah, it just means that people who maybe can't or don't want to self-host their own image or whatever, they can have this. We'll do this sort of stuff for you, and we'll kind of want to make it free for people to push their own private, like their own private namespace, and then we'll build features on it from there. But more on that. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, maybe let's dive in a little bit. Like, can you share a little bit more about the architecture of the project and kind of how you've built the system? I mean, obviously the challenge of going from local to cloud is always an interesting one, and like what you're choosing to like build from the memory system itself. Like, would love to unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I can try. Shut me down if I start saying things that like I've either already talked about or that are a bit boring. I guess like the heart of the memory system is more like there's a schema that we published in the open source repo that defines a thing we call the knowledge unit. And that knowledge unit's supposed to contain the kind of when it gets proposed, the agent can try and figure out like what domains it thinks it's applicable to, like is it testing or CI/CD or whatever. And then there's a frameworks and languages field in the schema, so it can propose like multiple values for all these things, and then like a sort of summary of what happened, and then the detail of how it fixed it. And that kind of like I think more or less encapsulates like this knowledge unit, and then once that's in the system, and it gets sent back to like an agent that finds it via the query. When it gets the skill tells it to validate things it gets, so to try and there's like a few things in place to try and stop stuff going wrong, although I'm sure it will eventually. But yeah, once it's validated something and then it says, okay, this thing's legitimate, and it applies the fix, it confirms it, so it'll send it back to CQ to say, yeah, that one worked. And the idea being we want to build up like signal of over time of like how often something gets confirmed and how many times being confirmed by like how many different types of agents, all that sort of stuff. So like I guess at a high level that there's that that going on architecturally. So yeah, there's like I mentioned before, there.
Yeah,
So
and maybe unpacking that just a little bit. Like, how do you ensure like high quality confidence in the memory itself and accuracy? Like, are you building any like scoring around the memory units itself for retrieval, or what does that look like?
so yeah, so like the schema is kind of like and being intentionally uh light, I would say, at the moment. And we had some people,
Flexible, we'll call it.
yeah, like, just even internally we're chatting about all this stuff, and it's like, should we add this, should we add that? And for now, I think the idea that we're trying to align to is like, okay, let's build stuff in a back end ourselves until we
Mhm.
prove that it's really useful, and then we would propose it to the schema. And there's other folks working on like similar systems, not just like forks of CQ, but kind of like in the same space. We've already
Mhm.
had like conversations with um around, like potentially like a working group and stuff like that to try and get more of a standard organized around this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So at the moment, the kind of the magic, the secret sauce or whatever you'd say of the scoring and stuff is like um kind of detached. So you have like the knowledge unit, which has got like evidence of, which has got all this other stuff attached, but like that's calculated like in a back end.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, that kind of leaves a bit of room, I think, a bit of flexibility for folks to implement it how they want at the moment. Yeah, it's trying to strike the balance of like like a protocol and a platform, and not trying to force too much on people. But
Sure.
yeah, I think we'll hopefully once we do this stuff on Monday and we get folks using it, then it might give us better insight into like what's useful and not useful for people, and that'll drive it from there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm curious, like from an immediate use case perspective, are you finding certain users for like whether that's like the actual memory layer using this more frequently, or is it like app layer that are kind of pulling this in right now? Like where are you finding initial traction and usage?
I would say it's mostly the gotchas. I mean, I'll show after I'll do a little demo later, and then I can also kind of like do a here's one I made earlier and show you some of what these things look like.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are kind of around, like if we've used it a lot for different things, like not just saying for just purely coding, but like dealing with code review stuff or like interacting with GitHub's API and things like that. So you see a lot of like, oh, I try to do this thing and it doesn't work like that, and so you have to, be careful when you use this API not to do such and such. So it's kind
Mhm.
of a lot of like, I guess like the glue between things is where where stuff normally seems to, you kind of run into friction. Um, there's quite a lot of stuff mainly around libraries and refactoring and stuff than other stuff. I've got
Yeah.
backup that I'll kind of we'll do our demo in a bit, and I'll reseed the thing quickly behind the scenes and show you afterwards, like kind of
Oh,
what it
cool.
looks like in the UI and stuff.
Yeah, maybe unpacking just a little bit of like this construct of a unit of memory, which is an interesting topic in and of itself. Like, how did you land on that as the thing to solve specifically, and like what has made it so useful or valuable in the tools you're building?
I think it was like, what's the easiest way to do to do this, like, because like the kind of, I don't know, like the root cause, I guess, is the training data that the models are using mostly is like slightly behind, and it's always going to be
Mhm.
slightly behind. um and so it's like, how do you kind of like patch that, I guess, with like knowledge that's relevant at that point in time. um so like it just felt like this was, how do we kind of give it the smallest amount of information to like make me happy when I'm using these things daily.
Yeah.
I guess would be like the approach. Really, there's not like any crazy science behind it.
No, that's fair. It's interesting just to think about. And then do you see people pairing this with other like open source memory frameworks as to sit alongside that, or like what does it look like in practice if someone's going to enable this in their project?
So at the moment, we've had, like I said, we've had a conversation with folks that are doing different things, and that was more on the standard. Um, we've got the SDKs that'll let people kind of like hook in easy, I would say. So like
Mhm.
if you don't want to use it in kind of a agent, like a coding CLI type tool, but you want to build it in your app, like you say, if you've got an agentic loop in your app, we've got they've got the Go and we've got the Python SDKs,
Hmm.
which can kind of do all the stuff it needs to do. So like it can emit the prompt, like the skills, so that it can tell the agent how to do the thing, and it can handle kind of making calls to save stuff and all the rest of it. So like I said this a couple weeks ago, and we haven't kind of got around to yet because we've got a lot of. I don't know if I like shout out all these products that we're building at the moment, but I really wanted to like integrate it, and I still do want to integrate it into a product we're building at the moment, where I think it'd be really great, like as part of like the flywheel to let it run and get stuff emitted quicker.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, those tools are available for people, like the CLI as well. Like you can just use the CLI. It can I'm trying to think what it can basically do. It uses the SDK under the hood, so it can kind of do everything the SDK does.
Hmm. That makes sense.
If people want to go command line.
Why not, right? Uh, I'm really curious. Like we started local first, like, and you're talking about going into like a cloud hosted version. How did you start there as kind of the framework, and like why, more or less, like why did you start there, and then how did you think about expanding that as like a shared memory across teams or workflows? Yeah, how has that evolved?
I think it was like selfish at first. So it was like, how do I fix this? Went for a walk one morning to drop the kids off at school, and on the way back, I was like listening to an audiobook, and someone said something in the audiobook that just like flicked the switch, and I thought, oh, like obviously, people will have done this before, but at the same time, like, can we do it as Mozilla? Because it feels like if we can get it right and we can get people behind us, like this is something we should maybe be involved with.
Hmm.
So it was more about, okay, like I guess that started a vibe of like, how do you test something? Like how do you build a plugin for Claude? Like how do you then save something locally in SQLite and get it to check it? And then once you've done that a bit, okay, how do you look at sharing that with other folks in the team or whatever? So kind of was more like a natural progression than like a sort of a plan or anything like that.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it seems like more and more of the tools that I'm seeing are kind of starting with a local first mindset. Well, for a variety of reasons, right? Is like get it building locally, it's faster, easier, but also, from a local model perspective, like you're not having to spend a bunch of inference trying to like test out applications, which is kind of interesting. So there's a lot of reasons why, but I ultimately, the idea of having shared memory and shared applications becomes really powerful and important. So like as you're thinking through the unit of memory, how does that scale and how does that become shared is actually just kind of an interesting construct to put in place. Um, Maybe I mean if you're ready, like do you want to pull up a demo and test it out and show the
Yeah, I
world?
can give it a go. So as you're
Let's
saying
do
that,
it.
I'm thinking like I should be saying more Mozilla AI related names here, just for anyone who's watching. So I was going to
Yeah,
say, like with all the local stuff, like we do a lot of stuff around small models. Like I say, when I say we, I mean like everyone else who works there.
yeah.
But yeah, like so we look after Llama file, which a lot of people have heard of. We've got
Hmm.
any agent libraries in Python, any LLM library in Python, which all kind of like playing in this area of like people being able to just get on with stuff without being tied into certain things. Anyway, sorry, you did ask for a demo, so I should
I
show
mean, I
you.
think that it's
Yeah.
good to call those out because I think you all are doing some really interesting stuff, and so it's good to have that on the stream as well. And maybe like we can showcase that at a later time. So yeah, let's post a demo and let's walk through it.
Okay, one moment. Sorry.
No worries.
Okie dokie.
Cool. Pulling that
Right.
up.
This definitely won't go wrong. I did do this demo a little while ago, and I did the thing where you're not supposed to do, where moments before I messed with something locally and forgot to put it back, and it didn't quite work as expected.
I have done that before.
It's like, oh, what am I thinking? So yeah, the kind of idea of this is that if I just show you in this repo, there's not much going on really. Give you a quick look at what's going on here. So there's just some like basic Python stuff in here and nothing special. And what the plan is to I guess start up Claude. That might be a good idea. Oh, actually, no, let's do the demo properly. So you have to install this plugin, right?
Yep.
So you can do that with this Claude plugin marketplace add, and then Mozilla AI/CQ. Oh, okay, it's already on disk. Thank goodness for that. And then once you've got the marketplace installed, you can install the actual plugin just called CQ, and it says, yeah, that's great. I've done that. Okay, wonderful. Right now, everything will be wonderful. So I can do Claude for everyone else at home. Once you've done this, normally, like you can just get on running it locally at that point. It's completely fine. But you can also do it in the README as well on the GitHub repo, as it explains. You can kind of set the environment variables for your agent if you want to connect it to a remote. So you can give it like a CQ address to point to and an API key to be able to like tell the remote who it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that behind the scenes, just full disclosure. But normally you wouldn't have that, and you would just be saving these things locally.
Yep.
So let's see if it works for a start. And then what we'll do is I will ask it the same thing I asked it last time, which is to add some GitHub actions. So if I say add a GitHub action CI workflow to this, this is where it lives, just in case anyone cares.
Yep.
If you did want to see what the code was, there's nothing much to it, just to run the tests. And if I kick this off, what's happened in the past normally is that it'll happily go and do these things. Oh, good. It's asking if it can use the CQ skill. Yes, of course. You may always use it. And so you
Yeah.
should. And hopefully it'll now say, can I also use the query? And we'll say, yeah, you can. There we go. So it's going to ask if CQ knows anything about CI or GitHub Actions or UV or Python or PyTest for
Mm-hmm.
Python languages. It's handy. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get anything back. So it'll probably just say nothing. I'm going to get on with it, and then we'll get the kind of normal world of there we go. No knowledge, right? And so
A
on
good
we go.
starting point. Yeah.
Yeah, the same pain that hopefully this everyone has. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say this, and what's probably happened is like Anthropic fixed everything behind my back recently, but normally you get because stuff moves so quickly and the training data doesn't, it'll say like, oh, I confidently know how to write a GitHub action, and it'll do it, but it might use a version of, say, like the checkout action that's like one major version out of date, not even just like, oh, it's not quite right, which also in this example might be fine. Like it's not that you have to use the latest versions of stuff. But it was just a thing that I saw a lot when we were playing with this, and sort of like I was like, oh, this, it always does this. One of my colleagues, Davide, shout out to Davide, also had a really good example, which I'm not going to try in case I get it wrong, which was where he was asking Claude if it could update its own configuration for an MCP server, and just like watching it going wrong like about 5 or 6 times before it finally figured it out. So yeah, we'll let it play around in here.
Cool.
And then once it had done that, it figured out, okay, I could have done this in the first instance. Don't worry. It's just one of
Yeah.
us
I was like, I got
doing
to
the
read the
certain
error
things
real
we're
quick.
supposed to. Yeah, the folks at Claude Code, they're just using a bit red to scare everybody.
Yeah.
So here we go. We'll have a look at the diff when it's finished. But yeah, okay, you can try. Don't know what it's up to. And yeah, you can run that. I mean, why not?
I always find it interesting what it recommends and when to run certain things. But yeah, that looks right.
Yeah, you sort of like you read in the command to be like, oh, because it likes to do a little thing where it'll stick two things together,
Yeah,
and then you sort
exactly.
of like, hang on, what are you doing at the end? And you're like, all right, okay. It's trying to fatigue me, so I'll just say yes to all or something. But okay, cool, right. So what does it do? It said, I've added this. So, okay, that's great. And blah 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 blah. And here we go. I already can see here. It was like I used actions. Check out version 4 and Astral setup version 4. And I know, and we will check if I go actions checkout. You have to excuse me. I'm not gonna switch over. But if I just look on GitHub at actions checkout right now, it's currently on 6.0.2. So it's kind of out of date. There's, yeah, I think that's fair. So
Hmm.
what we'll do is we'll say okay, you've just like used some stuff that's kind of out of date. So I'll just paste this in. I'm glad this worked. You will see. So I said, the versions of GitHub Actions, you've done major versions out of date! Exclamation mark. So serious. And then I'm really kind. And so to save it going off, I'm like, you should just check these places that I already know they exist.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, I'll go and have a look at the latest release tagged. I'm like, you sure can. Go on then. And it's, oh yeah, 6. That's a bit of a blow.
Yeah.
Now, okay, and UV, yeah. Sorry, I'm very reluctant to just press yes to all on
I
a
know
live demo.
I definitely can appreciate that. I'm not the type to just kind of like, keep pushing yes.
Yes, faster.
Awesome.
Okay, so it's changed some stuff, including using a more up-to-date version. Yeah, version 8. Oh, okay. Wow. So yeah, we can let it do that. You can run your mad Python from the command line. Yes, and what a wonderful demo it is. This is exactly the kind of thing CQ's for, so I should tell them about that. So it's going to be like, can I use this plugin? And like, yes, you can use the plugin. And then...
That's perfect.
I have great happiness in my heart. I'm not going to lie, Kevin. Like, doing a live demo is terrifying.
And everything lines up exactly as you want.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Let's have a look. Although it said it missed something. I'm not quite sure what it was saying there, but we'll find out. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Right. Okay. It did some stuff. And then there's a, did you propose that? Kind of weird. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, it did. Sorry, it says, I just read what it told me.
I see, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Claude. It did tell me, and I just got tired of reading. I was like, okay, so yeah, it did propose this thing, which it's been given an ID for.
So that's the knowledge unit right there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Cool. And so if I do like CQ status, we will see. Yeah, you can use that. That it's got this one locally. Here we go. Oh, there you go. I told you this as well before, where I was like, yeah, I configured this thing behind everyone's back. I'm really clever, but I put an API key in there that's absolutely no use. So I'll fix that at the end. But for now, what that means is it falls back to saving it in this kind of offline local cache. Yeah. So that's great. Okay, cool. So it's got the thing here. And now what we can do is if I just get out of here and if I do git status, you can see that it fiddled with that thing. And if I just do git reset, with all the typing skills, and okay, now it's gone. And if I start a new session with Claude, so no -- continue or -c, and it's back and it's fresh as a daisy, it's not going to make any mistakes. And we say this time, please do the same thing as we did last time. Then what I hope we should see is that it says, I'm going to query CQ. It's loaded, so that's looking
there it goes.
And I'm hoping that a query then finds this information and says, okay, that's going to save me some time. Mm-hmm. So let's have a quick look. Oh, okay, there you go. It did find this one. Here we are. Key uses verify current major version before pinning. Let me check the actual latest versions for the current thing. So yeah, okay, you can go in, check some stuff. And then you can see already it's just found like 6 and 8. So it's like, okay, cool. And we'll let it check the other one as well. Yeah, here we go. I need like music or something just to like just to take the edge off while it takes its extra few seconds.
You need the waiting room music. Please hold. It's good.
It's talking to GitHub about something and then talking to Anthropic about something.
We'll see.
Yeah.
While this is a lot of thinking. I'm very curious now.
Okay, cool. So now it's like, oh, watch me. I'm like, yeah, okay. You can do all yes to all. You edit all those files and make yourself happy. And I'm just gonna in the background generate myself an API key, which I'll explain later. Oh, but I'll also say, yeah, you can run UV lock. Off it goes. Oh, and then it wants to say, okay, tail. Yeah, yep, that's fine. Oh, yeah, you just do UV sync. Oh, I finally gave in and said yes to all, didn't I? I
Yeah.
knew it would happen.
At a certain point, yeah. It's how many yeses do you need to keep pushing for sure?
Okay. I like this, where it's like, this is really what it's doing, but then you get
Uh-huh.
asked about this, and you're like, no, Claude, I don't want to be
Yeah.
tricked into this.
Yeah, exactly. It's always about staying on task.
I promise you we're nearly there. EV run. Yeah, whatever. I mean, if it goes wrong at this point,
It'll be fine. I think you'll have most of the value.
yeah. Come on now. It's a lot of thinking, a lot of fiddling. I'm still just excited because, it got the thing that saved a lot of time up front. Oh, here we go. So now it says, now let me confirm the KU since it actually did work. And then I can also, it's learned something else. Oh, that's interesting.
That's
So it
cool.
can say, yeah, you can do this. So it's going to call confirm on that KU it got, which told it about the major versions.
Hmm.
That's going to be handy. And then it's going to propose. I think I'll ask if it can propose a new one, and then we'll see. It should give us a little summary.
What is the key like action that proposes a new knowledge unit? Like, do you have anything under the hood that makes it smart around how it identifies new knowledge units, or what's the heuristic that you're using?
No. It's kind of more the skill. So it's like the wording of the skill, which obviously leaves it up to interpretation of the
Yeah.
LLM. Um, so like in the open source repo, you can see like the main skill, and there's a whole section there which is like, when should you propose something?
Hmm.
And it says like, I'm trying to find quickly if I. Sorry, I was just trying to quickly
Oh,
open the web page to see if I can.
no worries. No, it's just interesting because I'm curious, like when and how it should identify when a knowledge unit should be created, and also, like, do you run into situations where it says it proposes a knowledge unit? You're like, actually, that's not really helpful, or like not something that we would want to include because it could, to your point earlier, distort or misguide the LLM in the future because it's just not helpful context, you know?
Yeah. So yes. So a couple of things to try and cover, I guess. So like yeah. So in the skill, there's like a whole section that says, when you discover something that you think would save another agent time, call propose when, and then there's some like examples like you discover undocumented API behavior, you find an unobvious workaround, like blah 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 blah. So it kind of like tries to give the LM something and the agent something to kind of say, here's the criteria. Here's some good examples. Here's some bad examples. We've also got Mozilla just put out a blog post really recently, which was kind of like had a co-contributor on. So Daniel, one of my colleagues, put out a blog post with Lauren Mushrow, which
Hmm.
was kind of like trying to bake in this vibe check, we call it, as a we call it, like that's what it's called, into CQ, so that when it goes through the stage, when it wants to propose something, it kind of like runs what it's about to propose through this um like 5-stage vibe check to try and make sure that what ends up getting up there, it doesn't include like PII and stuff. So on our Mozilla, on our blog, Mozilla's blog, you can kind of find that there, which is quite an interesting one. Um, Was there something else you asked me as well, and I don't know if I didn't cover it.
Well, it just
Oh,
like if it ends up distorting memories because you end up like consuming things that you may not need down the road, and like, or is there a way maybe to remove things in the future, or maybe there's even examples where you say, hey, keep everything, but then you still just need to steer it over time. Like, I'm just kind of curious how you think about that.
yeah. So yes. So what if it finds if it gets given some KU that it validates and says that's nonsense? Like, say it was like, can I just go and check this GitHub thing then? And then it comes back and it's like nonsense. Then the skill protocol kind of tells it, well, you should flag that KU and say like that it was a stale or it was not, it was incorrect or whatever. And that kind of overall in the in the back end will affect the confidence scoring and the relevance scoring and stuff.
Hmm.
And also when you've got it set up with a remote, like when you've got it offline, like we have at the moment, like everything just goes straight into the SQLite database and it's kind of there. Um, when you've got it configured with the remote, which I'll show you in like 2 seconds time, you get like a review, so you can say like yes or no. And
Got
so
it.
once until it's approved, it won't show up in the queries for any other agents. So it's like
That's
you've got a
helpful.
way to basically like a human in the loop stage that we've got there at the moment to kind of
Hmm.
vet that. Um, yeah, and then the idea is that with our hosted platform as well, I'll be able to like have different heuristics around what eventually might mean that something needs to be re-reviewed or that sort of thing. So like there's a lot of fun stuff we can do. Um, so yeah, hang on a sec. So sorry, Claude's gone off at a tangent. I don't think it's helpful to like carry on next because it's basically like I didn't make the tests yet because of this other thing and something else. Is like okay, but we kind of saw that like it did actually figure out the CQ side of things.
Yeah.
So did it write stuff? Oh, yeah, it did some stuff. Anyway, so what we can do though is if I stop Claude altogether and then start when you start Claude up the first time, it obviously starts all of its plugins. So you can see here in the plugins installed CQ, and then if you look at oh sorry, struggling. Normally, you can also see that it's got an MCP server as well. Why can't I? Anyway, sorry, MCP. Oh, okay, there. So you can see that it's got an MCP server running, and like once it starts up as well, it normally drains all the things when it's got an API key that's valid and not a bad one. And so behind the scenes, while we were doing this demo, I tried to update it in my config. Let's see if it worked. So what I'm expecting is that
Real
it can
time.
actually, yeah, it can talk to the remote and it'll say, okay, like I don't have these things locally anymore. Yeah, there we go. Right.
Nice.
Excellent. So the thing I didn't cover and we won't bother talking about right now is like, say, for example, you do loads of stuff and for some reason it doesn't propose things at the time when it finds them. And you've fought with your Claude's the victim today, but like you fought with your coding agent assistant or whatever of choice, and at the end of like your session, you're like, I've had enough of this. Like, there's been so many mistakes. You can do
Hmm.
like I won't do it now, but you can do like the CQ reflect, and that again is like a sort of skill driven thing where it says like go through your session and find those problems and then like abstract them and propose them. It'll give you like a little table and
That's
stuff and
cool.
say like which
Yeah.
ones of these do you want, and you can say like number one and number three, or like I want to edit number two first, so you can kind of tweak them. But yeah, we won't do that right now, and I'll flip over just quickly. So sorry.
Have you found for each for this right now? Have you found whether certain models are better or worse with CQ, or do they all kind of work the same?
Uh, I, it's hard to say because, let me just switch that over while so don't forget. Let me know. Can you see that? Right. Okay, cool. It's hard because it feels like, I don't know if this is like just one of those weird, like some kind of, there's a scientific phenomenon or something, but it always feels like you're using something and just when you trust it, and you're like, this thing's getting good. It's almost like they kind of like twiddle the dials behind the scenes, then it just goes to pot. So
Yeah.
we've been using Claude a lot. I've using like Codex, playing with Gemini and things. That they all kind of have moments where they seem really like lucid isn't the right word, but like they're kind of on task, and then other times when they go all over the place. So like it, I think it's more. I don't know. It's a bit up in the air. Weirdly, I've seen maybe until recently, like it's. I think now that we've made some tweaks to the skill as well because it's really hard. We talked before about all the rules people stuff into into the like Claude MD file, it's like kind of the same with your skill. Like everyone gets a tiny masthead to like advertise to Claude
Yeah.
what your skill does and when it should be called, and so everyone's like vying for attention. But like I think we've got it right now for like when it should be getting triggered. But when I was playing with open code and using Codex, it was quite happily like querying CQ like regularly, whereas I had noticed before with Claude it wasn't doing it as much, but it's much better now, so that's good.
Interesting.
So no is kind of the answer. Don't know if anyone's better than another. Anyway, sorry, I'm running this locally. We'll talk about it publicly, I think, on Monday now. I wanted to show you the Pro one, and it is accessible, but it just wasn't going to be as fun for the demo.
Sure.
So yeah, we can. So this is kind of like my local running version now of the remote CQ instance. So if I log in with GitHub and log in as myself, and it'll say welcome back. Here we go. So I can sign into the CQ remote, and here you get to kind of view. So it's okay. We've got 2 KUs, which you might remember from before.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them like pending a review, so we can kind of go and see what's going on there. And then show me this bit bigger. Yeah. So yeah, you get this like little inbox type view. And then you get to see like, okay, this is what happened. And then it kind of explains what the deal was. And then it tells you what it thinks is the recommended action. At this point, like when stuff's initially come through the review for the first time, there's only ever going to be like one confirmation on it because it's the agent that proposed it. But later you might find that something's been confirmed or flagged and ended up back in re-review. And so this is where we have this human in the loop stage where we would say, okay, like, is there anything in there that either we think is going to trick an LLM that, we hasn't made it through any of the guardrails checks, or PII, like personal data that we don't want other people to accidentally query. And then once you're happy with that, we're like, okay, we read that, it makes perfect sense. Then we can say approve and then confirm. Yeah, okay. It's saying once you confirm this, like any agent will be able to see this thing.
Mm-hmm.
A star.
How do you think through like governance and like policies of who should have access to certain things, or is that kind of like up to the team to choose what should get shared?
So yeah, there's like a little mini internal roadmap. So I think on Monday we'll be able to talk better about what I'm showing you now, which
Okay.
is kind of like what I kind of call like individual contributors, like I see like private namespace type vibe. When we kind of roll out the phase after that, we want to make it like sort of like multi-tenancy for orgs as well. And then I think that's kind of where you see more like the policy stuff come in. So for now, if I approve this, all it means right now is that any agents that I've given access to can read it. In the kind of what's going to happen with this as well is we're going to seed like what we call it a commons namespace, which will be available to every agent. So when you query CQ, like this one, for example, what you get is like a superset of like all your knowledge that's relevant and anything that's in the commons that's relevant, like combined and scored and then given back.
Yep.
And then eventually we're going to also add like kind of all the nomination and graduation like processes. And so there'll be like a lot of cool stuff coming. It's all coming like fast. But yeah, at the moment it's set up now so that like anything I point to the real URL with a valid API key, like any different agents on different machines will all be able to query and get stuff back for my own KUs that other people can't see. So yeah, I can like either reject or approve this. I could say, okay, no, not that one. And then you can see on the overview what's going on. Like we've rejected stuff, we've approved stuff. You can also go in and like say, oh, mistakes were made, we'll look at that and we'll either send it for re-review or like for someone else to look at, or we'll just approve it. It's fine. And then you've got, well, you won't have an admin thing. This is a platform level thing, but you've got like API keys. So this was the one I just made earlier while we were chatting, but you can create an API key for an agent, give it a name, and then give it how long you want it, like a TTL before the API key is revoked, and some
Cool.
stuff. So it can kind of do like, I don't know, 90 days, and then we promise that we copy this thing. This will be gone, so it's totally fine. Yeah, and then you can kind of drill in and search for like active ones, or we could say, let's revoke that one now. So anyone who's using that key, they can't get in anymore. So it's just a way for you, like you to be able to manage like how you're delegating like your authority to agents, because
Yeah.
to be able to like query, propose, flag, confirm, like you need an API key, which you get from this. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at
That's
the
awesome.
moment with stuff.
I'm curious, like as you kind of go through that, who do you think will be the primary on that? Is it like the IT teams that are kind of managing engineering teams, like or like a DevOps team? Like who ends up kind of being, because in the one hand, you kind of want the engineering team to be able to validate the actual like shared context, but IT probably wants to manage like control of who actually or like security for like who has access to certain KUs and whatnot, you know. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Again, I think we've got a lot of stuff I think is like going to be published very soon. So like we've got like
yeah.
security notes and like kind of things we want to recommend. I guess what will eventually boil down to is like, so with this, the kind of IC mode, it's like you review the things and they're just there for you. With
Mm-hmm.
the kind of org multi-tenancy stuff, then it gets to what you're talking about now, kind of more tricky, where we say more like we want to go through like a double blind review, you know, and you kind of would nominate
Oh yeah,
like,
that's an
I mean, your
interesting
team might
idea.
have access, but then maybe like certain people are nominated to be like reviewers, and between them, as long as two people approve that thing, for example, and they don't know what the other people are saying, then it gets through, etc., etc. And there's like
Yeah.
all this other stuff we want to do around putting in like automated guardrails, pipelines, and stuff, so we can kind of
Mhm.
like vet certain things beforehand. So yeah, this is all happening at the moment, but kind of
That's
this
really
is just
cool.
to show you like the demo, really, and then I guess now actually if I go back here and I say, well, let's just see what one of the domains was. Sorry, I go and like approved and have a look for this one, like CI GitHub Actions or something. So if I just ask Claude, quickly switch back, sorry, to the terminal, and then I promise I'll stop doing demos.
No, this is great. As you're talking through this, it's an interesting one that we've been thinking about and trying to understand of like how does the new um, agent first developer flow work. And I actually think one of the things that you capture, especially in the cloud hosted version, is this ability to capture the developer intent with the agent reasoning and kind of control and changes, and then log the context of why that is now part of the memory itself and the knowledge unit. And I think that's interesting because part of the new developer flow is that it's not just the PR and the commit of the code itself. It's actually all the other information that is attached to that, which, you know, it has to be encapsulated in some sort of block before that gets pushed into and utilized within the agents going forward, right? And I think that's actually really interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I just tried when you were talking, I
Oh
tried
yeah.
that thing and it claimed that there was nothing there. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not going to dwell on that. We'll come back to that later. But we can
Really
do,
there, don't worry.
yeah, very quickly. You should be able, yeah, CQ query. Uh-huh. So I'm just going to copy. All right. Okay. So if I do CQ query dash dash address, and what does it want? Domain. And I mean, this is fine. This is my local API key. Fear not. Stick that in there just for. Okay, not doing well here, am I? Yeah, I need to fix something else. And I nearly got through a full demo without running into a bug, because we definitely approved those knowledge units, so they should
Yeah.
now be available via the query. So yeah,
Mm.
I'll stop sharing. I'll stop sharing. I went too far, didn't I? Pushed my luck too far.
It's all right. It's part of the fun. Super super cool. And then, I mean, obviously a full fledged roadmap. Like anything that you're super excited about. Are there other things that you're looking forward to with where this project could unlock memory with these agents? Like, yeah, I'm kind of curious to see where you think it's going and what you're most excited about.
Yeah, I think it's really, it's like the part of it. I'm not like an academic person. Like part of it is like it feels like there's an academic element to some of the stuff we could learn here that's quite interesting. And then the other
Hmm.
side of it, from like a more like product focused kind of view on stuff, is like that kind of that locally running version of the platform that we're going to have out is going. It's like I think it kind of like opens a lot of doors. So like with being Mozilla AI, we're like massively focused on like the principles and like the Mozilla values like are kind of baked into some of the stuff we do. Um, so a lot around like choice and privacy and all that sort of stuff. So like we're trying to be really careful about saying, okay, how do we provide this platform where people own the KUs they create and they put in their
Hmm.
private namespace and they can export those, and obviously they follow the schema so they could take them elsewhere. But then maybe like the way we're trying to sort of make sure that we word it in such a way it's like, how do you give ourselves enough room to like ask people who are using our platform, okay, do you want to like opt into this feature that we're trying to build? And then maybe that's going to help. So like things I could think of like off the top of my head of like what we're looking at of thinking about now is like, okay, like how do you do like deduplication of KUs? Like, in reality, you might run into something and it's kind of similar, or propose one thing, propose something that one other one hadn't found yet, or whatever. So like, how do you kind
How
of
do you
even
merge
offer
them and combine,
yeah,
or
like how do you kind of do like this thing? Can you generate a new KU that sort of like supersedes the other ones? So the schema supports that like structure right now, but like how do we build that functionality to sort of like I think like that's what I'm saying. Could we do it in the platform first and show how it would work? And so like even to like offer that to users to say, hey, do you want to like DG across your own namespace and like look at all your stuff? Because we could like potentially offer that to people, or even to say, okay, like this is like none of the KU should contain like personal data or stuff like that. Like
yeah?
ideally, and like when the way if it follows the skill, it shouldn't anyway. But obviously, we'd want people to opt in if we want to do something like to offer maybe like cross namespace scanning, where we say
Mm.
actually like we found like 6 things that are the same. So what about if we took those 6 things and basically created one that supersedes it and put that in the commons basically? Then
Hmm.
everyone else doesn't need to like hold on to those things. So you kind of like distill the knowledge that's relevant for you, and everyone wins because they get it in the commons available to everyone. So like all these sorts of things are quite interesting. Like what are these kind of features that we can build that like would help people, but I mean also like it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean that is really cool. There's a lot to be thought through on that. One thing I'm curious about. So locally you're using SQLite, but like, are you testing other technologies to help this scale differently, or think about like to some of these like frontier use cases?
um so you would just at the moment we've got like Postgres, so like
Okay.
SQLite for the local stuff. The open source server uses SQLite and kind of like it and Postgres. We've had one of the open source
Okay.
contributors helping to like RFC that and build that out. And one of my colleagues has been trying to implement the semantic search stuff. So like
Hmm.
we kind of haven't really gone like deep into anything else yet because we're trying to just get like stuff up and running and tested and put things put through it and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, this is someone else as well before, but like I feel like even just it's going to be really interesting. Like it's not like about like what people are doing or agents are doing, but more like how the knowledge kind of like comes and goes over time and what sort of knowledge becomes relevant or like how often stuff like I think there's a lot of different ways you can like slice what could end up in like a commons that's available to everyone, which could
Yeah.
like maybe then feed back into sort of like academic stuff.
I would imagine yes. I mean, I think it goes to what does cognition look like, and some of the like memory and general psychology around how memory gets managed, and like the brain itself. So yeah, I think there's probably some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I love it. And then maybe kind of shifting gears a little bit, like how can folks engage with the project? Like where do you need community help right now, or where do you see that going in the future?
Uh, yes. So on the open source repo, like we'd love people to like get involved. So there's like a on there. There's like a development guide for people who want to try and do some like build it themselves. There's a contributing guide, I think, to sort of give people some tips and getting started. Um, I guess like the first thing is like clone the repo, install the plugin, like play with it. Like if you find issues, that's a great place to start. If you kind of don't want to get your hands dirty, but you're happy to file an issue, if people want to help with development, I think there's quite a lot of there's quite a lot of GitHub issues that we haven't sort of got round to yet. We are working on everything though; it's not being forgotten about. But there's sort of ones in there that I think maybe we could sort of go through and re-triage, and then there might be some easy things to pick up. Yeah, there's loads of ways. Like we've had, I mentioned just there about the Postgres stuff. We had a contributor kind of raise a GitHub issue to say, you know, they wanted to deploy this self-hosted version. We've got the open source version in Kubernetes, and that just doesn't fly with SQLite very well.
Mm.
So, you know, it was a totally valid use case, and they were happy to kind of like help do the legwork. So we asked them if they could open an RFC in the discussions part of the repo, and we kind of spec'd it all out together, and then created
That's
all the
awesome.
issues, and they're like kind of helping work through that. So like they're going to help like themselves and everyone else who's using the products. That's awesome. So like there's definitely loads of different ways. Yeah.
That's great. I love it. And then maybe kind of like as a call to action, like where can people find you? Where can they find the project? I dropped the project repo and the blog post, but any other like areas you want me to share with the listeners and streamers?
Yeah, I don't know. I need a better social media presence. I think I kind of went away from it all about 10 years ago, and now I'm having to sign up again for stuff. I think I've got an account on Mastodon. I've got on Blue Sky, like Pizky22, same as my GitHub handle. So like yeah, if you can reach out there, or like I'm on LinkedIn, Mozilla AI.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
mean, it
great.
doesn't
You
have to
know,
be me directly, and I'm not. This isn't a shrug, but like I said before, like there's a team of folks here, like who are all like amazing. So anyone that you manage to get a hold of from Mozilla AI is going to be super useful.
I love it. That's great. And then any other parting words for the folks tuning in and watching that you'd like to share?
Well, thank you for thanks for coming along. I mean, hopefully, like this is a project that maybe like people could get involved with. Don't have to get their hands dirty, like I say, but maybe even just using it, it might become something that they find useful.
Yeah.
Like even just running it locally, like nothing's going to leave your machine to come to Mozilla. So you kind of are in control of those KUs or whatever. And then maybe you start realizing that it's a good thing, or maybe it's a bad thing, and you get in touch with us and tell us why, and that helps us either way. But yeah, hopefully just like in kind of, I would hope it maybe just inspires people to try stuff, maybe to kind of even to be more open to like some of the stuff around the kind of AI assisted engineering and like
Yeah.
the pros and cons. But yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm super excited. Well, thank you for joining us today. I think it's been really interesting to kind of talk about what knowledge will look like on agents. So it was really exciting for me personally. And I think the folks that tuned in got a lot to learn and hear about what you're building. So thank you again. To all the streamers, thank you for joining us today as well. We'll see you next week on Open Source Fridays, and have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.